Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Up Zone, where understanding politics is made simple. I am your host, and I am joined by your other host, Mr. Elmer Floyd, and myself, Tisha S. Waddell. We have a dynamic guest today, totally great timing based upon an article that hit City View today. But we are joined by former Councilwoman Shakeyla Ingram of District 2. We actually scheduled her to come on and have a conversation with us about the day center and the information that we discussed, because like I was telling you, Floyd, I just felt like it would be so much more impactful to have somebody who had a more recent point of view come on and share with us what their experience was with this day center. And I know that Shakeyla was very, very, very involved in not only the implementation of the day center, but once it came online, just really being out there and kind of seeing how things were going. But before we jump into all of that, Mr. Floyd, how are you today?
So far, so good. So good so far.
I know that's right. Now, you got any announcements that you want for our audience to be aware of this morning?
No, other than my party had their convention last week.
Okay. For the new listeners, what party is that?
That is the Democrat Party.
Okay.
Can't speak for
And I am registered unaffiliated. And I always tell you, we have plenty of room on this side for you. You are welcome to come and join us. I ain't coming over there. I ain't coming over there. Y'all house full of mess. I ain't coming over there.
You might have to straighten out something.
Nah, listen, Floyd, that's like somebody with roaches inviting you to come over their house to have dinner. I'm good. Thank you. But I do appreciate the invitation. I don't listen. I'm not judging. I just don't have a desire to eat out that house.
As a member, so we need to find you. And so
No, y'all need to change your messaging. But anyway, I digress.
okay.
I'd like to listen, Floyd. I'd like to. But like I said, I appreciate you, Mr. Floyd. I want to ask you a question before we jump in with Miss Ingram. Are you aware of anything right now? And this is to your point. Are you aware of anything right now that's being done to really find out what the Democratic Party needs to do in order to recruit more members?
Oh,
Explain.
that's the only help party needs to rebrand itself.
Well, listen, now I can actually agree with you. I think if they would seek God, they may actually have a shot. Shakeyla, welcome. Can she hear us? I don't know. Let me text her because she's sitting over there looking pretty and not saying a word. Hold on one second, Floyd. I'm gonna text her. Can you hear us? Okay, I just text her. So, Floyd, now while we let her figure out the logistics of why she's not online with us, let me ask you this. You hearing anything interesting going on in these streets post-election, sir?
It's just that both parties are preparing themselves for the November election. Attended the homegoing service.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the persons there spoke what the Republican Party is doing here in Colvin County.
Okay.
That was very interesting to me.
What were some of the things you were hearing that were interesting to you?
It was that they are going to be a little bit more aggressive. This more unification of their party.
Okay.
So I'll just say that what my party giving primary so many candidates,
Mm-hmm.
and they're telling people, some people, that you are too old to hold office.
Mr. Floyd, what do you think about that statement? Because we hear that even at the national level that, you know, hey, you're too old to have this job.
Well, you know, well, if you're too old to have the job, then you should look like you're too old to go to the poll and vote.
That
Okay.
I don't agree with that. I don't
Now,
necessarily agree with that because I think that you can still be cognitively able to decide who you want to do a job, but maybe not have the capacity to keep up with doing the job.
if you look at our society today, we're living more, we're
But Mr.
more.
Floyd, do you think that you may be an exception to a rule, whereas you are still in good health, you still have your cognitive function? Do you think that you may be an exception to that rule, or are you the standard?
But when you look today, I consider myself as part of that group, okay,
Okay.
that has been blessed over the years by following health.
But how many of you are there in the, you know, in your age range? And I'm not gonna call you out for how old you are, even though I know, because you like you look, you be trying to keep your age close to the vest.
That's that, you can't knock on one end, then at the same end, request the person to go to the poll. You got to carry the whole team to the poll, the
but
young, the
but
old,
Mr.
the
Floyd, let me
immigrant.
ask you this, and then Shakeyla, can you hear us now? Okay, good
Yes.
deal.
Yes.
Let me
Can you
ask
hear
you
me?
this. Yes, we can hear you perfectly. Let me ask you
Okay.
this, Floyd, before we loop Shakeyla in about this day center conversation. Now, I'm a grandmother now. Now, it is much different as a grandmother than it was as a mother. I don't have the same desire to be doing all of that running around, and like I have a lot more patience. I have a different skill set that would have probably served me well as a mother. So, to your credit, as I get older, I gain a skill set that would have served me well in my capacity as a mother, but serves me well. Now, Floyd done got kicked off. Ah, this is funny. This is hilarious. Okay, Satan, you are not going to stop this podcast from moving forward today. In the name of Jesus, I plead the blood of Jesus over all of this technology, and I decree and declare that this podcast is going to move forward, and the information that comes out is going to come out, and you are not going to stop it. You're not going to block it, and you're not going to interrupt what we're doing. There will not be any more technical glitches. We're going to move forward in Jesus' name, and we are going to have this conversation, and we are going to tell the truth. And it's not anything, Satan, that you can do about it. So stand down now in Jesus' name. Shakeyla, I don't know what's going on. We ain't never had people keep getting kicked off the podcast. Unmute yourself, Shakeyla.
That's odd.
But given
That's
the
odd.
topic of discussion today, it's not that weird. So we'll come back to what I was telling Floyd later. Let's go ahead and jump right in and start talking about this conversation with the day center. Now,
Okay.
when we look at the day center, Shakeyla, you know, you and I were there as these conversations were moving forward about how to structure this center, what should be included in this center, how we should be looking at this center, who should partner with us in this center. Talk a little bit just about the inception before we jump into how we got to where we are today. Let's talk about what those conversations look like. What do you remember that being like?
Well, I do believe it was a lot of back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, because some I know Councilman Benson Gaukeland said it needed to be a shelter where
Right,
people could lay their heads. And then the other half said, well, yeah, it will operate as an emergency shelter. It will do these things. And when we finally got the ball, but it was a lot of back and forth for a lot until about, I want to say 2022-ish. It
right.
was a lot of back and forth. And I mean, start from the start of the conversation in 2020 to 2022, it was just a lot of back and forth. And
Right.
so when we finally started having a conversation in 2022 about with the consultants about what we wanted it to look like, what we
Right.
wanted it to be in there, um, I felt at the time that the consultants were listening, to what the needs were and, what was going to be some of the outcomes of what the center would be. But I also don't know where staff fell in that conversation as well, what they thought
Mhm.
it should be, what it should look like. Because now when I look back at the conversations we had, I do see some of the things did get put in there. They did get put laundry in there. They did put a children's area in there. They did put doctor's offices in there or
Space capacity
examination
for that.
rooms in there. Yeah, they did put offices in there. They did put, workstations in there for individuals looking for a job. There is a cafeteria in there. There is a meeting space in there. So some of those things did get put in there. However, I think what was missed was the shelter part.
Let me ask you this,
Um,
Shakeyla. I want to go back to before we actually got to the consultants portion, because I
mhm.
think that sometimes this may be a part that is not really talked about. Speak a little bit to the time frame, because these were dollars that were grant dollars from the federal government to implement this particular project. So there was a timeline tied to this. What did that timeline look like from the time that you and I were having that conversation to the point where the consultants were brought in? Because I remember it feeling like if we don't hurry up and make a decision, we're going to lose these dollars.
Yeah, so we had 3 years, and I think we got the award probably in like 2019.
Hmm.
But the saving grace was COVID.
Right.
We had an extension. And so when we finally came out of that, it was like we gotta fast track this. We gotta rush this because we're gonna lose the money.
Hmm.
For people that don't know, the funding came by way of Hurricane, was it Matthew or
Yeah.
Florence?
I think it
Uh,
was Matthew. I want to say it was Matthew, but I'm not 100% sure.
Gotcha. So, but it came by the way of one of the hurricanes. I'm pretty sure it was Matthew.
Hmm.
Um, because Fayetteville had been impacted in a great way. The sticking point was emergency shelter, though. And I'm gonna throughout the conversation, I am gonna keep uplifting that because what you will see is that it does not operate as an emergency shelter.
And
However,
we were assured that
yes.
that
However,
there would be the capacity for that.
yeah, there would be capacity for that. However, I feel like it was a play on verbiage
Absolutely.
because and if you know it head on, which I do feel that some people in the planning process knew this early on, then you know that the city does not set the emergency plan. The county does.
Right.
And the county picks and choose what facility will be used for emergency shelter. And
Hmm.
so for then us to go to say no, this will be used for emergency shelter, and then for us to be told, well, it wasn't built for emergency shelter.
Hmm.
Well, that was the whole premise of this.
Right. And I think, because if you remember, Shakeyla, that at the inception of this, there was a committee set up. And on that
Yes.
committee, it was myself, Courtney Banks McLaughlin.
Mm-hmm.
I almost want to say Larry Wright was on that committee, but I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember if it was him, but there was a third council member. And I remember us bringing, and you may remember this, I remember us bringing information up about when we went and visited the Hope Shelter. It was Kathy and I, we went and visited that, and we saw the wraparound services, and we kept trying to push for a multi-layer approach to how
Mm-hmm.
this center would be built. Courtney, and to her credit, Courtney Banks McLaughlin was adamant about the shelter portion. Adamant.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we continue to see her name being lifted up as the one who is still saying, we need a shelter, that has been consistent for her
Mm-hmm.
throughout her tenure. Now, one of the issues, as I recall, was this argument of who, not even an argument, but this concern of, well, it was a little bit of an argument too, who would provide the services. So, Shakeyla, the big
Mm-hmm.
issue that we see now is not only that it's not a shelter, but also that the provider is like, hey, when my contract is up, I want to cut ties. Why are we
Yeah.
seeing that? What information were you all provided that led for you to select this provider, and what was the agreement that you guys had with them?
So I know that there were some specific numbers given. Don't fully remember them. However, from my understanding and what I've been told, they have reached their capacity. They've been reached their capacity.
Mm-hmm.
When the proposal came to us, so we were being told things about um the county would fund a portion of a position. We would fund, their operating costs for them to be there. They would service a certain amount of people. Um, and what I believe that they were just overwhelmed. In addition to, I also think, well, they blew through their budget literally almost 2 months into the facility being open.
Okay.
And
Wait a minute.
and
Wait, Shakeyla. Say that again. How long was their contract for?
oh gosh, I don't know. I can't remember. I want to say it was for a year, maybe.
But you said that they blew through
They
their
blew
budget.
through their budget. Yeah, they were at 2 months, and they was like, "We're running out of money
So
already."
the budget was for a 12-month period, and they exceeded that budget in 2 months.
Mhm. Mhm.
Shakeyla, in your estimation, is that a deficiency on behalf of the city to provide accurate information or on behalf of this provider to be able to really estimate what it would take to fulfill the terms of this obligation, or maybe both?
I think both.
Okay.
I think both. And I think this was a trial and error. Because this was new for the city. This was somewhat new for them.
Okay.
And I say somewhat new because Cumberland Health Net, they were housed on Murchison Road. And I don't necessarily remember them getting complaints like I've heard them receive, up until recently.
Mm-hmm.
Which lets me know, like, beforehand, the work that they were doing, it was efficient work.
Right.
But I also think with the new services, them having to manage all these certain things in this whole facility, and then they don't have adequate staff. They don't have all of their needs being met.
Okay.
Um, you can blow through funds that fast. You can see more. You tend to see more people when 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 you have more funding. And two, the facility,
Mhm.
everybody was going to the facility.
Okay.
You had people being bused here, and when I
But
say bused here, not
we were
everybody.
also busing people elsewhere, right?
So that was a pretty much, from my understanding, a one-time thing where they actually put a whole bunch of people on a charter bus and sent them there. When I say bus, I mean, so if you was able to, there's like this program where if you can make a family connection,
Okay.
then and your family receives you,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm not gonna say the city, but a provider will get you a ticket, train, bus, which one of the two, and then that you'll get put on that bus or train, and you
Okay.
will go there.
Okay.
Now, you have some individuals out there where it's seasonal for them to go through this process.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so you had that. You had an influx of homeless families where that includes children with multiple children. And so I just think they hit capacity. And I want to say this as a disclaimer, don't quote me on the term of how
Right.
long the contract was going to be, because when I got out, I got out.
I
But
understand.
but I do know, because I was at the facility so much. I felt like I was an employee there. I was
Okay.
at the facility so much. It felt like I was learning everything in real time, just like they were. And
Right.
so I'm seeing them saying, well, well, the cleaners are not going to come back until tomorrow. Why is that? They're not coming back because we don't have the budget. We don't have
Well,
the
why
budget
is
for
that?
this.
Right.
Well, why is that? But here's the thing: if this is a city property, why are you having to foot the bill for the cleaning service?
Right.
Why isn't the city, so you can allocate the true resources
Like
that you
with the Parks and
need?
Recreation Center, you have somebody on staff that's a city
Right,
employee that's just
right,
constantly maintaining that building. Did you ever
right.
get an answer to that question?
We got a solution to it.
Okay.
We got a solution to it, and I think it's because I was there so much. I would literally be calling Michael Gibson, and I appreciate Michael Gibson. I would literally call, and they do have somebody on staff, and they
And for
respond
reference for
very
our
quickly.
audience, very quickly for reference for our audience, Michael Gibson is the Director of Parks and Recreation with the City of Fayetteville. He is
Hmm.
phenomenal when it comes to response. Even now,
Yes.
Shakeyla, if I see a dead deer in the road, I can text Michael and
Hmm.
say, "Hey, there's a deer on this street," and within a matter of minutes to an hour, it is handled. So
It's
he
gone.
is
Hmm.
phenomenal with response. Okay, so go ahead. Let's talk about what Michael Gibson did for you or for the city.
So in terms of maintenance, whatnot, Michael, I called Michael. This is what's going on. He's on site.
Right.
And if he's not on site, his people are on site. I remember
Mhm.
there was an instance where there was a serious water leak, and there was only one caution, the triangle yellow
Yes.
thing that say
Yes.
there was only one in the building. And I was like, how do you process this? And so staff ended up needing to go to the store and actually buy some. And in the interim, Michael bought some over from his shop. And
Right.
so it was just it understanding that it was new.
And there
Some
should be glitches
things,
expected because it was new.
yeah, it was new. But what I want to hone in on for future developments, such like the Cumberland County one, planning is key. The part of, just like this is a part of city planning, it is key.
Mhm.
If you know that this is going to be a heavy lift, and I'm not saying the city staff did that. I'm not saying that they, negated some of the major issues. I'm not saying that, but moving forward, I hope you made a template out of this.
Right.
Because I think while this was a grant, I think in some regard, um the city, we did put money into it. But I just want to make sure that investment does not go away due to lack of planning.
Right. So, Shakeyla, do you think that a partnership with the county in executing this facility would have benefited the city's execution?
I think so. And I
Okay.
think even I think if not the county, I'm like this. I don't think, and whoever see this can get mad with me, and I'll say it to them personally or directly.
Mhm.
I think the people that should have been in that space, and I'm not saying Cumberland Health Net,
Where was
they're not, they shouldn't have been
connection?
in there. I think I don't know if they actually bidded on it.
Okay. So
I don't know if they bidded on it. But I think that when we look at projects like this, just like when was an interest for someone to come in and build out the old hotel and make it transitional housing, you have to have a proven record. I need to like you need to be able to show
that
that
you've
you
done
have
this.
done this. And let me
Absolutely.
tell you this, if you are not from that community, from this community, I'm absolutely okay with that. I just need to
Absolutely.
know that you can
You
do
can
it,
do this.
because we are at a point in time where we are way past trying to say, well, I'm here, I've done all the work for this community, and I
Mhm.
should be. I get that. I understand that. You can
Mhm.
come on as a partner with this entity that has
Absolutely.
proven that they can do this work in this type of facility.
Absolutely. Shakeyla, I want to say this because I think that there's not often enough credit given to you in this regard. You are a lot more strategic than I think that people have given you credit for. And I think, in addition to you being strategic, you are also, and I think it was because you were young when you came on the board, and people, I remember one of our peers was just livid with you, like, that little girl is not going to tell me. And I had to remind that board member, that's not a little girl, that's your peer that was elected to represent an entire district. And Shakeyla, I think it's lost on people how good you were at being able to see deficiencies and create solutions when it came to some of the problems that our community faced. And I want to tell you and anybody that's listening today that, and we'll get to this in a second, but the moment I knew, I said either she's got excellent advisors or she's very smart. I knew this when you brought up the idea of a moratorium for Locks Creek and for a moratorium for development. And we'll jump to that in a little while. But what you just said brings me back to that memory because that's key. If
Yeah.
you're going to build a center like this, you need to have in place the infrastructure to support the people that you serve. And that
Hmm.
includes ensuring that you have a partner organization with a proven record of success. Because otherwise, you're just kind of guessing what
Yeah.
the outcome may be.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I really
Thank
appreciate you
you
saying
for
that.
that.
Yeah, no
I
problem.
appreciate that.
No problem.
Um, you, and being there, um, I felt so bad for Shelly because I know the work that she puts into it. I know she actually cares about it. But then it's like watching how, city staff moves, watching it's just government.
Right,
Everything moves slow, and then you start to hear, well, we don't have funding anymore for this one position.
right.
Well, how is that when y'all were supposed to plan out,
Plan for it.
that
Yes.
and so my background, for those that don't know, I initially went to college for architecture, to study architecture. That was my major. And so apart some you have to take some classes that focus on city planning, city and infrastructure planning. And you learn about foundations, you learn about future and how that can impact the people that will be living in these structures, and not just living but operating in these
Right.
structures. And so I that sticks with me. And I think it also,
Welcome back, Mr.
hey.
Floyd.
Technology. You all forgive me, technology.
No, that's okay. That's okay. We're still talking day center, so you jump right in wherever you feel like it. We're still right in that conversation. We look, I was looking for you. But Shakeyla, go ahead and finish talking about how that your experience has led to you
Yeah, so
really
I
having to
think
take advantage.
my architecture background, with being, studying that, I did not full out pursue that degree. It was a lot, and I got tired of drafting. So, but then also within my professional career, my business, I do strategic planning. I do operations. I find out where the fires are, and I provide solutions. And so I just used that to, I guess, my benefit. But I'm when I was in when I got there was a point in time in my life where I thought I wanted to go into the Navy. And so with that you have to take the
Really?
ASVAB. Yeah. With that you have to take the ASVAB. I got it and everything, and I was like, nope, I'm not going. I do not want to be away like that. And um so I took the ASVAB. I scored extremely high in risk. And so it just made sense to me because I am that type of person. I'm assessing risk all the time. I'm looking for
Right.
exits. I'm assessing risk. And so all of those things, me and Kelly Oliveira, she is the assistant city attorney,
Mm.
I'm sorry, assistant city manager for the city of Fayetteville. I was always calling her, "Hey Kelly, this is what's going on. Here's how we can get fix this. Hey Kelly, what do you think about this?" And I think if people would have known how much I was down there, or speaking with her, how I used to be policed, that would have been a problem. That would have been a grave problem for a
Right.
lot of council members if they would have known that. But it was also in my district, so I felt responsibility to be there.
Right. Shakeyla, did you see any other, to your point, did you see any other council members actively engaged in understanding the issue that was popping up as a result of this day center?
Not when I was physically going there. Now,
Okay.
there was this committee that the mayor had set up. It was like a mental health and homeless committee, okay?
Okay.
And the chairman was Councilman Mario Benavente, and the members were um Councilman Dino Hondros and Councilwoman Brenda McNair.
Okay.
I saw them. When I saw them, they were having their meetings at the city hall, and I
Okay.
had even told Councilman Benavente, and I said it in my address when we did the ribbon cutting at the Day Resource Center. I hope that the committee could meet here sometimes so that
Right.
they can see in real time what's happening. Is that to say that members of the city council never went down there to express concern? Not saying that. I just didn't see it for myself because I would go more towards the beginning of the day, the middle of the day.
Right.
I don't know
What
when
was happening?
yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Mr. Floyd, you have anything you want to ask Miss Ingram about this day center?
My concern was that prior to entering into a contract, did the legal staff advise the council of the terms and the condition of the contract?
So what I do remember is we had a presentation where we were afforded opportunity to ask the ins and outs of the agreement.
Okay, but
Okay.
my concern,
And
I
what
understand what you're saying, but it becomes the legal staff responsibility, is to go over thoroughly the contract with the council person or the organization, at which time, after the staff provide the legal terminology of the contract, is that questions are then asked. You can't have both at the same time.
So what ag- again, when it was brought to us, of course we get everything in advance. We are to read over it in advance.
Mm-hmm.
We are to, if we choose, we are to submit our questions in advance, and staff, legal, city manager, whomever we submit them to, will get back to us with questions.
Okay.
If there are no questions, that means you good to go. And so it has operated like that since before I got on council. And so to my understanding, if I had questions, I knew I could go ask the acting city attorney at the time. I knew that I could do that. When it came down to the presentation, there were some questions about the agreement and how long, or who would do what. They did get addressed in the presentation, but how I am used to the council working is, or operating is, you get your information, you read through your information, you submit your questions if should you have questions, and when the meeting comes, if you have more questions, staff is there to answer the questions, the applicant is there to answer the questions, and if you don't have none, you don't have none. And what that says to me is you don't need to complain about anything that comes behind this.
Right. Right. Because you didn't have any questions.
Well, a lot of times, we find out that all of us are not academically together, if you understand what I mean.
Mr. Floyd, I
It's
think what you mean to say is that all of us don't read our packets.
what
And they say make it plain. Make it plain. Because no, some council members don't read it. They
Yeah.
think that they can just read
The title.
the title and the legislative text.
Sometimes
And
they don't
that's
even read
gonna
that, Shakeyla.
right, and that's gonna give you everything you need to know. And sometimes they just try to skim through the actual PowerPoint presentation, thinking
Right.
that's gonna give you everything you need to know, and that's
Right.
not the truth. And when you come into this line of work, you're gonna have to read. You are going to
Absolutely.
have to read, and so I'm gonna be very transparent and say this, and this is not something that I'm ashamed of. I struggle. I'm very smart. I struggle with comprehension. I struggle with reading comprehension. I read real well. I read real well, okay? But I do struggle to digest certain things. So when I go to this acting city attorney, I need you to tell me this like
Break
I'm
it
in
down what this
elementary
means.
school.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
how I'm taking it. I'm utilizing my resource because I don't want to have to come back complaining to you about anything that I didn't ask questions on. But
Yeah.
well,
no, people don't read.
my thing of it is that when you're saying that there's 475 homeless people that's out there that can visit the shelter over a period of time, and then you give the organization 200 plus individuals, and they already serve 900 and some odd individuals. That's the problem with it itself. Now, the communication, as you mentioned, was that it would just be a day, but people were under the impression that it would be a night center also. So that's where the confusion that I've seen and that I've heard is that the lack of communication, whether
Mhm.
it would be overnight or whether it would be a day, and that's where the confusion have come, and it's still there. Although now you say it's a day center, you know.
And Mr. Floyd, and I think, and Shakeyla and I touched on a little of this. Well, we touched on this at the beginning, but that's the issue that even some of the members of council have heralded. Like, for example, Courtney Banks McLaughlin. From the beginning, she has asked for this to be a shelter, to include a shelter. But the council has always been very clear that they were making a day center. But they did give some indication that there would be opportunity for emergency shelter, and that when emergencies were called, they would be able to operate as an emergency shelter. So I can see where that confusion came in, and most certainly, I think when we talk about this all the time, Floyd, and we talked about it with Charles Evans about his messaging. When you are talking about serving a population that is as disenfranchised as the homeless community, you're talking about needing to get a message out to people who are not watching city council meetings. You're talking about needing to make sure that you are meeting the needs of a constituency that's not coming to City Hall to tell their elected what they desire and what they need, which means you have to actively be engaged into going out to that population to bring the dialogue to them. But when you only have one or two council members who are willing to do that, because I remember Shakeyla went and spent the night on the steps of the library. And I remember when she did that, she went and slept on the steps of the library with the people who were sleeping on the steps of the library. And I remember as an elected official watching my peers condemn her for that, because they felt like it opened the city up to liability. It sent the wrong message. But what she was doing was going out to experience, what is this experience? You cannot resolve something that you are not prepared to immerse yourself into. Now, everybody doesn't have to go sleep on the steps of the library, but Floyd, you can't help a single mother unless you're willing to talk to that single mother. You brought forward legislation for child support because you understood what was going on with these mamas who had to go to child support court and spend all day there and not get any resolution. But you understood that because of your willingness to deal with that population. So I think that's a big deal. I want to shift gears because I have a hard stop in about 15 minutes. So I want to shift gears and make sure that we do get in the conversation. Because Floyd, when you sent me this article today, honey, when I tell you, I said to myself, self, I don't even know if I want to talk about this. And I'm going to tell you why. Floyd, you sent me this article and somebody else inboxed it to me. And I didn't see the inbox until after I saw what you sent me. And they said, you're mentioned in this article. And when they said that, I said, I don't even want to read this. But I did. And it was the City View Today article about Locks Creek. And when I read it, Floyd, I said, what better day to have Shakeyla Ingram on this podcast than the day we talk about the mayor of the city of Fayetteville wanting to build apartments at Locks Creek. Now, Shakeyla, I just gave you kudos. And I told you that when you brought forward, Mr. Floyd, I don't know if you remember this or not, but Shakeyla brought forward a proposed legislation because let me say this, and then I'm going to shut up for a second. Shakeyla, what is the job of the Fayetteville City Council? What is our job? What are we?
We are the governing body for the city.
Which means that we create legislation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Our primary function is to create legislation that serves the needs of this city.
That's right.
Now, everybody don't do that. Some people just get up there and want to get such stop signs put in or want to host community events, or everybody's not focused on legislation. Shakeyla brought forward legislation. This was on the heels of 2 devastating floods that crippled Cedar Creek. And she came up and she simply said, and it was so good. This is when I had to sit up in my seat. I said, this little young girl is smart. She proposed a moratorium on development in Cedar Creek. Shakeyla, how did that go for you when you proposed that?
Oh, it didn't go well. It didn't go well. It didn't go well. And I wish I would have pushed it more, because what was said to what came back was, and what this is also something that before I got on council, another conversation came up about it. And it was like, really, y'all? Because now it was like, well, we might want to have to take a relook at it.
Right.
What I was told was that if we do a moratorium, that then nobody could make any type of updates to their homes. No one can pull any
We're
permits.
the governing body. We can put in.
And that's why I felt like I should have pushed it more, because what I was seeing was
no new
eviction moratorium here, this type of rent moratorium there. And I was like, wait a minute, okay. Why don't we do a development moratorium? Because if you can't prove that, and there was a lot that was preparing to be sold, and it was right on Bombay Drive. They've cleared the trees out now, and so at the time you couldn't prove to me that this new development would hinder or help the flooding.
Right.
And I don't think it's by way should the citizens find out just by trial and error.
Right.
You know, and at that time also, Tisha, they putting houses on stilts.
And so, Shakeyla, speaking of which, you sent me some pictures.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You sent me some pictures. I want to show some of these pictures. Mr. Floyd, do you mind if I share some pictures?
Go right ahead.
Okay, let me pull those up. Now, you keep talking, Shakeyla, while I'm doing that.
Mm-hmm. So they're now putting houses on stilts. And I remember sitting in a dinner meeting, Kathy Jensen, she's now the mayor pro tem, and I think she was the mayor pro tem when this happened. I can be completely wrong. I was sharing this with the council, and at that point in time, I was very emotional because I go out there when the residents are calling me to take these pictures and to help them come out of their homes. Mm-hmm. Most times I beat the fire department there. And I thank God for our fire department, because they have to help get these children out of the homes. And I'm not talking about hurricane. I'm not talking about a hurricane.
Regular floods.
I'm talking about a regular rain.
Mm-hmm.
For the next 2 days it decides to rain, well, let me go ahead and find me a hotel to go to.
Right.
And these
Right.
people didn't know this coming into when they purchased these homes.
I was telling
And
Mr. Floyd, we almost purchased a home over there prior to Hurricane Matthew. And
mm,
Shakeyla, I'm telling you, when I say God loves me, baby, and I'm glad he does, because he saved me from my own stupidity, because we didn't do any of those checks to see what the water levels look like when it rains. We didn't do any of that. And they had accepted our offer. It was the owner decided that they wanted to do something different with their property, and as a result of that, they rescinded the offer. We
mm,
found out after Hurricane Matthew that house that we were looking to purchase was covered up to the roof in water. And when I found that out, all I could do was say, Father, I thank you, because there's no telling how that would have affected our lives.
mhm, mhm.
And this is what this community deals with regularly. I am not finding the stilt picture. Was the stilt picture in City View's article?
It's in the article. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
in the article.
Okay, let
Hmm.
me pull that up. But I want to show y'all these other pictures. I'm going to pull these other pictures up because I think they speak volumes. And Shakeyla, I want to start with this one because again, it goes back to what I said, Mr. Floyd, about you can't be out here and really do what you need to do if you are not out here. If you're not out there, you cannot do what you need to do if you are not out here
Hmm.
actively participating in this process. So let me show y'all. My computer is doing all the things it wants to do. We're going to share this screen. Tell me when y'all can see it.
We can see 1,000 of you
Do you see this
and me.
picture?
We don't see a picture. We see a lot of you.
Okay, well we're cute, so that's not what we want. Let me stop that. Hold on, Floyd. I'm gonna try one more time. Hang on, because you know how you know. Here we go. Here we go. What is this? What are we
There we
looking
go. Those are my boots. Those
at?
are my boots.
And look at how
Those are.
like these are you can
Mm-hmm.
see your feet are at least 6 to 8 inches below this water.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is not okay.
Mm-hmm. And
That is
that was
not
in a very
okay.
that was not in the deep part yet. Yeah, I
What
had
is this?
that was the Callum's house. And so her husband, I think at that time was deployed, and it was just her and her kids. And
Mhm.
thankfully she has a good relationship with the neighbors across the street. And so we would literally go and be like, all right, come on. And
This is
like,
not okay.
it's
Because when
not.
this
It's
water comes into
not.
your house, you have to mitigate the mold and mildew. You have to
But
rip out carpets and flooring.
Tisha, not only that, she was still getting updates from when Hurricane Matthew had it hit.
Right.
So you mean to tell me I just got these new counters
Right.
that were just replaced? I'm
Right.
just now getting these new appliances because, and y'all talking how she just now getting it, because it takes just that long.
Right.
It take that long. I'm just now getting these things, and now here again, and now these residents are forced to buy flood insurance.
Look at this. Look at this right here. This is the land. This is the property that the apartment complex is proposed on. I say this all the time about over here in our area. This is wet. This is a swamp. That means that water
Uh,
is moving into that area.
Tisha and there was a conversation and then we moved forward when the city tried to do a park over there off D Creek Road. They were saying
Mm-hmm.
that if they move X, which is swampland or wetland or whatever, they must create this uh, uh, some type
Yeah.
amount, over in the other area, so in that it can sort of offset. So
Look at these
what I
stilts,
see,
Floyd.
uh, well, yeah, I saw those pictures, but it didn't have anything under it when I was, scanning it. But my concern lies here, Miss Ingram, is that you have a professional staff that have indicated, and the board, based on the professional staff recommendation, I think it was 4-1 or 5-1 against this project.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but the project has a right to come before the council or for review. My concern lies, even though the mayor have indicated that he would excuse himself from participating in that decision-making process. And I shared with Tish, don't forget speed dial. Okay.
Yeah, because Kathy recused herself from voting on the that what they call that over there, the mini prison. Is not, I don't call it a mini prison, but that's what that community calls it.
That's what
She
they
recused
called it,
herself
yeah.
from that, but it didn't stop Jonathan Charleston from calling the council. It didn't stop the council from having conversations about it, and it didn't stop the project from moving forward.
Well, that's a concern that I have, and I discussed last week, Mr. Ingram. You wasn't with us. That this same attorney is going to represent a person, a organization that is requesting I think it's 3 lots of whatever it is to increase their footprint in that area. Now, I do hope that given the relationship, that same excuse will take place because of the appearance. If you all understand what I mean,
Mr.
the
Floyd,
appearance.
can I ask you a question? Do you not remember
Yeah,
the news articles about the Crest building? I mean, it was referenced in here, what I said, but the mayor may recuse himself, but it doesn't stop him from going and leaning on these different department heads and these different people at the city to get this stuff done. And I wasn't even the one that
well,
initially made that
I
accusation. That
also
came
mentioned to you,
from a
uh,
downtown
that's
merchant.
why I also mentioned to you also about speed dial. Perhaps you don't understand my language about speed dial. Okay, you know, I can excuse myself, but I also can speed dial.
Right.
Have a conversation prior to my my excusing myself, and I
Right.
hope that we never move into that direction as it relates to the communication process.
Mr. Floyd, can I ask you a question though? And Shakeyla, I want you to jump in here. Mr. Floyd, in science, many things are proven based upon patterns. Patterns are the proof in science.
Well,
So if we look at this situation scientifically, the mayor has established a pattern here with the Crest building, with PwC, and now with this. And the pattern always has the same players. It has the mayor, and it has Jonathan Charleston, and it has city staff. So why is this community not willing to scientifically look at this and say we need to look into this? Because I'm going to tell you, the only way for this development to stop, in my estimation, is for the Locks Creek community to stand up and say we need this investigation to take place, for them to lean on the district attorney's office and say I need you to investigate these claims that were made before, because we're beginning to see a pattern and it's getting ready to adversely affect us.
I think that over a period of time, a reasonable-minded person from all segments of the community will take a look at some point in time patterns and practice.
Absolutely.
At some point in time, that community will begin to look. But when I have a professional staff that advise me, and it's sort of how we do things. That's fast forwarding with the county garage. Uh, you know, they're using an organization that another city has released them from their responsibility. What I'm simply saying is that for some apparent reason, and you, Miss Ingram, where skill set, we strike skill and we put in relationship.
Come on, Mr. Floyd. Shakeyla,
We
what you
strike
want to
steel.
add?
We strike
So
steel.
I think I got to a place when I was on council, and I think even Tisha got to the same place. If y'all willing to let these people do it, you know what? Have at it. And y'all just gonna have to take that up with the people you serving and the God you serving as well.
Yeah.
And I'm also now in the place of, and it infuriates me because it's like I remember I was to say I remember Mayor Pro Tem Kathy Jensen, she laughed because and was like, oh, well, at least they're finding a workaround. I didn't think that was funny at all. And I
Mm-hmm.
got emotional and started crying because these are people's livelihoods that you're taking,
Mm-hmm.
at risk. And so, especially in an area where they say, no, this is a flood prone area,
Mhm.
unless you're going to put the investment in it like you did the stadium downtown, you shouldn't be touching this.
That's
There
right.
Right.
are other ways, there are other places east of the river that you can do this development. There is
I
land
can tell
available on
you,
Deep Creek Road that you can purchase. It's a whole bunch of acres on Deep Creek Road that could stand the investment. The only thing I fear is that it's a two-way street, and it's just not that safe to me with additional cars.
Mhm.
However, there is land east of the river that you can go get and do it in a more ethical sense.
did you
And
all
so, but if y'all used to letting these people do whatever, then y'all go right ahead
Have
and
at it.
let them have at it.
Have at it.
Some people, they just not going. I've been watching a lot of How to Get Away with Murder lately. I don't know why. I just have. And so it's one thing after another, but it keeps getting worse
do
and
you all
worse
know,
and worse.
have you thought about 480 plus units?
That's a lot. That's a lot.
That
And the art
and
and
you
the
talk about
argument
800 and some parking space.
the argument will be there's a housing shortage.
Oh,
We
that's
need
already
housing.
the
We
argument.
need this.
Yeah.
We need this. You got to look at the bigger picture. There's a housing shortage. Just like the council wouldn't let them put housing in an airport overlay. What makes you think it's okay to put it in a flood zone?
But it's the same players because again, that was Jonathan Charleston in the airport overlay. It's the same players. If y'all don't ever catch anything I say, audience, you need to understand these players are out for self. They ain't worried about you. They are out for self. They're not worried about you. They will use key phrases to try and trigger you and manipulate you into making you think they're for you, but they are about that dollar. Mitch's building downtown was about profit. The PWC deal is about profit. The deal that he is working to build this housing complex is about profit. It is not about you. Because if it was about you, if it was about your interests, he would be trying to do it in a way that did not critically or negatively impact the community that it's going to go into. Y'all, I really do have a hard stop right now. I've got to get on at 10:30. Shakeyla, I hope that you will join us again.
Yeah,
I hope that
anytime.
listen, and I really mean what I said. I'm not blowing smoke. You are smart, you are strategic, and the city benefited from your service. And I think that they
Thank you.
lost two very good council members by not having us in that dais anymore. But I do believe that they
Thank
have
you.
still gained friends in us because we still fight for them. Mr. Floyd, what are your closing words before we get out of here?
Tisha, I wish that we would look at experience than self.
That's good. I like that. Shakeyla?
Keep your eyes and ears open no matter what. Show up for yourself, show up for your community in any way that you feel necessary.
Absolutely. And my closing words are simple. There's a song by Israel Houghton called Love God. And what he says is love God, love people, love your neighbor as yourself. And I'll leave it at that. You have a wonderful day. Tell a friend to tell a friend, like, share, subscribe, and follow. And we will catch you on the next episode.